Okay, hello, welcome to the podcast Box Office Show. I'm Nick Hilton. Today we're going to be looking at Spotify in the UK, which, maybe not all of you are, but you probably will have listeners in the UK, so that will be instructive anyway. And we're going to look at it on desktop, which I know is not how people really use Spotify, but it's just for the purpose of this, it's going to be on desktop. You can see that's my Medium. You can follow me on Medium, but more importantly, you can subscribe to my newsletter, Future Proof. Okay, so this is what Spotify looks like for me, pretty much, when I log onto it, and I'm using the in-browser version, which is, again, probably not the best thing to do, but I find Spotify kind of hard to navigate. So let's have a little look. It's got my kind of up there. You can see I don't listen to a huge amount of anything. I'm a premium member, but I mainly just listen to atmospheric music and a few podcasts, my own podcasts, for instance. And I've curated, for instance, this collection of podcasts of the year from last year, which has loads of great podcasts. If you're looking for new podcasts, you can search that out somewhere. But let's try and find podcasts on Spotify. I'm going to pour myself a cup of coffee, so apologies for a sound that is a bit like someone urinating next to me. Anyway, that's done. Let's try and find podcast search, recent searches. So now you can see what my recent searches are. Top genre is podcasts. There must be a better way to get to podcasts than this. But if it exists, I don't know, because it's treated like it's a music genre. It's as prominent there as charts, music, workout, mood. Anyway, and here my top genres are apparently pop, indie, rock. I don't think I've ever listened to rock music. Browse all. Let's browse podcasts and let's see what's going on here. So this is the experience I get on Spotify, and the nature of these places, the nature of places that have these big and important kind of algorithms governing them is that everyone's experience will be different. But this to me is a relatively neutral experience because I don't listen to podcasts on Spotify, so it doesn't really have a huge bias towards podcasts of a type that I specifically like. So, for instance, I am not someone who is likely to listen to the Joe Rogan Experience, but it's still pushed towards me. I'm not likely to listen to Diary of a CEO, but it's still pushed towards me. And I'm not likely to listen to the Always Sunny podcast because I've not seen the show. So it seems a fairly neutral experience, but those are the three that they've chosen to push. This one, I spoke about it last week on a look at the Apple stuff, what's going on there. So they had a big splash interview with some Love Islander last week, and that's kind of done really well for it. And yeah, it's been this kind of top performing podcast. Look at that, Johan Hari, in the UK for the last week or so. Joe Rogan, obviously Spotify exclusive, bish bash bosh. It's going to be front and center. They spent a heck of a lot of money on it. They'd be foolish not to. Let's see what see all top podcasts. It's very similar to Apple. You've got Happy Place, Anything Goes, off of these comedians, the ones, Street Boy. This is interesting to me. This is I think this is just someone ripping off the Harry Potter audiobooks, and it's a top podcast on Spotify. I've noticed this before in the past that for some reason the Harry Potter audiobooks are not, their copyright's not very well protected by Spotify. But bizarrely, because I would have thought this is a curated playlist, top podcasts, but maybe it's just like best performing podcasts. Maybe this is actually totally raw data, because I can't believe that Spotify would curate an illegal version of the Harry Potter audiobooks into a top podcast playlists. So maybe these are literally the best performing podcasts. But then this is basically a Watford podcast, a Watford Football Club podcast. Anyway, a couple of documentary podcasts, and I just listened to Sweet Bobby last week. It's good. Then they've gone for for me they only tend to really have one interesting playlist, and this one's music, which is fine. It's a diverse set of things. 1, 2, Spotify original, Spotify original, Spotify original, Spotify original, Spotify original, Spotify original. So more than half of these are Spotify originals, which probably gives you an indication, at the very least, of what their curation interests are. And then categories. So top podcast. This is podcast charts. It's just because I'm using too small a window. I cannot get that to load. Well, I can't open that. Podcast. Let's have a look at playlists. Best podcast of 2021. These look quite a lot like the ones they're recommending in their various playlists, because Decode is in the music playlist, and Sweet Bobby and Ben Foster down there. You probably can't see it just off screen. They're in the other playlist. I wonder about these playlists, whether anyone listens to them, because I wouldn't want to sit through 6 hours and 43 minutes of kind of random podcast episodes. I get the idea is to sort of give you a taste of a few different things, just like the podcast award winners one, and indeed just like my podcast of the year one. But realistically, 11 hours and 40 minutes of just random podcast episodes. I don't think it's probably a very useful discovery mechanism. Podcast Essentials, again, this has been fairly static for some time. Don't think they've added much. If you need to listen to Series 1, Episode 1 of Serial, then it's there. But I think most podcast users are beyond that at this point. Genre highlights, and this to me is interesting. It speaks to a certain trend in people's consumption, which is to be like, oh yeah, brilliant, this is Louis Theroux. What different podcasts has Louis Theroux appeared on? And here are all the different shows that he's appeared on. So it's actually sorted by guest rather than presenter, which is sort of I don't know. I would have thought sort of almost contrary to what the governing principles of radio were in the good old days. Because something like Desert Island Disc, you would have thought people like the host, they like the format. It doesn't really matter who's on. The whole point is that you experience different perspectives, you experience different guests based on the fact that you like this show. And this is sort of almost working it in the opposite way. It probably speaks to how many shows are almost identical, that you basically can get the same interview with James Acaster probably. How many things in this? 15 different times. The same interview with Rob Brydon 13 different times. I mean, yeah. But it's interesting. I can't because I can't open the charts. It's a bit frustrating. Top podcast by genre. What happens if we just Google Spotify charts? Spotify charts. Let's find out what happens here. Log in with Spotify. It's just going to ask me for my password. Yeah, let's do it. Oh my god, I don't want this. Okay, so actually, Spotify podcast charts. I should probably type in. Let's see if anything comes up with anything which to indicate to us what's doing well. Because otherwise, people are just entirely at the mercy of the curation, which isn't. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, because the charts on other places are, like Apple, are so erratic that it can be quite hard to know what's actually doing well and what's not. Let's see. So top all podcasts, top spot podcasts on Spotify. Joe Rogan Experience. So yeah, I mean, it looks to me like these are literally just the best performing podcasts that go into that playlist. I had assumed it was curated, but not according to Chartable, which explains why they have things that are in direct contravention of copyright law in there. I'm just going to go on. This is my own podcast, just to have a look at the podcast page. There's talk about the podcast page changing, and I don't know whether it has on mobile, but it certainly hasn't on desktop. Basically, even though Spotify probably should at this point have realised that I listen to basically classical music and podcasts, it doesn't make it very easy for me to discover anything new in the podcast area. Daily Mix 1, Daily Mix, these are all music. And recommended for today, piano song, but all Mozart, Brahms, but nothing until right down here, which is further than anyone would reasonably go on this page. I'm recommending my own podcast again. Finally, they have episodes recommended for you, which is interesting. I don't know how they do. For instance, season 2, episode 9 of Stephen Fry said Seven Deadly Sins. I don't know why it thinks that I would go in there rather than at the beginning. With these ones, it seems to know that I want to start at the beginning. This one says episode 12, so it's kind of random, and obviously it's front and center. It's got two of the top 6 podcasts it's offering me are podcasts that I make, which is kind of waste, because I would rather be recommended a podcast that I haven't already listened to. But yeah, so that's Spotify today. Today is the 11th of January. That's the UK homepage. I'll try and set up a VPN and be able to have a look and see how different the experience is in the US and other places. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe to the channel. I guess it doesn't get me anything, but do it. And please subscribe to my newsletter, Futureproof. Go to futureproofnews.substack.com/subscribe. There's also a link in the episode description. So yeah, thanks for watching the podcast Box Office Show.